But mostly, let me thank all of you for coming out today to make it clear, everybody in this country, that the American people and young people are prepared to stand up to recapture our government from the big money interests. You know, I am often asked by the media why it is that our campaign draws large crowds like this. I don't know how many people are here, but there are a lot. Last night we had 14,000 out in Tucson, and the week before that we had 24,000 out in Boston, and then huge turnouts on the West Coast. And I am often asked as well, not only about large turnouts, people ask me about money because, as you all know, as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, what the political experts believe is that the only way you can run a serious campaign is by begging millionaires and billionaires for their money through super PACs. So I am very proud to tell you that we are doing it in a very different way. We're looking at the only non-billionaire major candidate for president who does not have a super PAC. And what we have done, and I'm immensely proud of this, we have more people, more individuals contributing to our campaign, 650,000 people. And you know what the average contribution is? Not $1 million, not $1,000, it is $30. I don't represent the interest of corporate America, and I don't represent the interest of the billionaire class. We don't want their money. We're going to do it on our own. This is a people's campaign, and you, brothers and sisters, are part of a political revolution. This is a campaign that is taking on the establishment at every level of society. From Wall Street, which in 2008 caused the worst financial crisis in the modern history of our country, to corporate America, whose greed is destroying our economy, to the drug companies who are selling us the highest priced medicine in the world, making it impossible for millions to get the medicine they need. We are going to take all of them on. Is a really radical concept. You ready for a radical idea? Well, it goes back to what Abraham Lincoln said after the Battle of Gettysburg, and you all know this. He talked about a vision in which we had a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and that is what this campaign is about. Our job together is to create a government which works for all people and not just a handful of billionaires. And let me now tell you something that no other presidential candidate will tell you, and it's a very important point, and that is there is no president, not Bernie Sanders, not Barack Obama, not anybody that you can think of, who can effectively transform our country and protect the interests of working people and the middle class and low-income people in the way that has to happen. No one person can do it. And the reason for that, and we don't talk about it, the media doesn't talk about it very often, but the reason is pretty clear. The powers that be, Wall Street, corporate America, the major campaign donors, the corporate media, have so much power that we cannot make the changes that we need unless millions of people come together, stand up. And what we have got to say as a people, we're sick and tired of corporate greed. And we demand a government which represents all of us and not just the 1%. And my point here is to ask for your help, not just during the campaign, and I certainly do ask for your help and your support, but we need your help the day after the election. Because what we are fighting for is not going to happen unless millions of people demand that it happens. The big money interests win when voter turnout is low and when people are not paying attention to what goes on. We win when voter turnout is high and when people are focused on the real issues impacting their life. Let me take a brief moment to mention to you what I suspect most of you already know, and that is yesterday there were shootings on 2 college campuses. One student was killed at Texas Southern University and one was wounded there, and at Northern Arizona State University 1 student was killed and 3 were wounded yesterday. Our condolences, of course, go out to the families of the 2 people who lost their lives, and our hopes and prayers go out for a full recovery to those who were wounded. But as President Obama said after the recent shooting and killing of 9 people at the community college in Oregon, we're all getting pretty tired of condolences and prayers after mass killings. We have a hard time understanding how people can walk on a campus or into a schoolroom or into a movie theater and take out a gun and kill and kill and kill. Condolences and prayers are not enough. We have got to do something meaningful to address this crisis. Gun violence in our country, as everybody here knows, is a very serious issue and one which, tragically, Colorado is all too familiar with. The attacks in Columbine and Aurora have put your state on the map nationally in a way that I know you did not want to happen. Now, I am not going to stand before you today and tell you that there are easy answers to this crisis, either from a public policy point of view or from a political point of view. because if I told you that, I would not be telling you the truth. But the fact is that there is a different way that we can address this issue. And that is that instead of people yelling at each other, we have got to come together on common sense approaches, which in fact the vast majority of the American people support. And that is the good news. The good news is there is a strong consensus in this country of steps that can be taken to address this issue. The American people in large numbers believe that we should improve and expand our background check system. Woo! Now that's something widespread support to ban semi-automatic assault weapons guns which have no other purpose but to kill people. Yes. So there is, and I'm not going to tell you that everybody in America agrees with every one of these ideas, but what I will tell you is that poll after poll tells us that gun owners and non-gun owners believe in common sense approaches which make sure that we keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have those guns. And the other aspect of this crisis is to acknowledge that we need a revolution in mental health. You know, if somebody, God forbid, gets into an automobile accident and they get injured, the ambulance comes and takes them to what is almost always very good emergency care. We have great emergency rooms all over this country, and people's lives get saved by very skilled practitioners. But yet the truth is that in America today, sadly, but truly, there are thousands of people walking the streets in Vermont, Colorado, who are suicidal and have homicidal thoughts. And yet for those people, it is very difficult in many cases to access the care they need. And our job as a nation is to make certain that when somebody is dealing with a mental health crisis, it doesn't matter whether you have insurance or not, but what doesn't matter whether you have the money or not. What matters is that you get the care when you need it, not too much. Now, if we do all of those things, you're not going to solve every shooting in America. But I think it will take us a significant step forward, and that is what we should be doing. Let me also address another issue of enormous consequence in this country, and that is the issue of immigration reform. Now, I know a little bit about the issue because my dad was an immigrant. He came to this country from Poland at the age of 17, not speaking English and not having a nickel in his pocket. But he was able, along with my mom, to raise 2 kids in a way that would have been unthinkable from where he came from. Our story, the story of my family, although we never made a lot of money, and we lived in a 3.5-room rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, New York. New York! And my mom never achieved her dream. She died young, of being able to own a home of her own. But my father was the proudest American that there was, because he appreciated the opportunity, extraordinary opportunity, that America gave to him and his family. And that story, the story of immigration, my story, our story, is the story of America. Hard-working families coming to the United States to create a brighter future for their children. It is a story rooted in family and fueled by hope. It is a story that continues to this day in families all across America. Now, as all of you know, today we have 11 million people in this country who are undocumented, who came to this country to improve their lives, to escape oppression, to flee desperate poverty, and to flee violence. And let us be frank when we talk about undocumented people. Today's undocumented workers play an extraordinarily important role in our economy, and we cannot forget that. Without these individuals, it is likely that our entire agricultural system would collapse. Undocumented workers are doing the very difficult work of harvesting our crops, building our homes, cooking our meals, and caring for our children. They are part of the fabric of this country. Let me make another point. Anybody who thinks that undocumented people came to this country without knowing that there would be jobs available for them, that employers in fact knew that they were undocumented, would be missing the history of America for the last many decades. That is the reality of where we are today. Employers were complicit, hiring undocumented workers for low wages. That's the reality. Question is, where do we go from here? Now, some of my Republican colleagues think that the way to address immigration is through demagoguery, through racism. They think they can gain votes by attacking an entire group of people, people who've come from Mexico, and calling them rapists or criminals. Now, honest people can have differences of opinion as to how we proceed to deal with immigration. But in the year 2015, it is unacceptable, it is un-American to be stooping to racist attacks to people in our country. We have seen this movie before. We have seen politicians play whites off against blacks. We have seen politicians play men off against women, straight against gay, and now their theme is those of us born in this country opposed to those who were born in another country. And we have got news for them. We are not going to accept that type of demagoguery. Now, I supported the 2013 Comprehensive Immigration Reform legislation, which passed the United States Senate. Frankly, it wasn't the best bill in the world. It needs to be improved. It was a bipartisan piece of legislation. But what it did do is provide a responsible path to citizenship so that millions of people could come out of the shadows, have the protection of the law, and participate fully and openly in American society. The Senate bill contained the provisions of the DREAM Act, which I strongly support and which would offer the opportunity of permanent residency and eventual citizenship to young people who were brought to the United States as children. It is my belief that we should recognize the young men and women who comprise the Dreamers for what they are. They are kids who deserve the right to legally be in the country they know as their home. Now, the Senate passed the bill far from perfect, but the House of Representatives has yet to act. So today I challenge the U.S. House, and I assume their new leadership, instead of demagoguery, do the right thing. Let's pass immigration reform. Now, until we pass comprehensive reform, we must be as aggressive as possible in pursuing policies that are humane and sensible and that keep families together. And this includes taking measures that are currently available, including using the presidential power of executive orders when appropriate. While the Senate passed the DREAM Act and its immigration bill, and while the House has not yet acted, I think President Obama did exactly the right thing through his executive order for deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA. DACA was a good first step, but it should be expanded. Deferred action should be expanded to include the parents of citizens, parents of legal permanent residents, and the parents of dreamers. Our job should be to unite families, not tear them apart. And when we talk about issues facing this country, there is an issue to my mind of enormous consequence which cannot be pushed under the rug, and that is the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in America. And I want you all to think about this for a moment. Media doesn't talk about it a whole lot, so let me.
All right.
And by the way, one of the fun things about running for president is precisely this. You have the ability to put issues on the table that others would rather not talk about. So let's talk about income and wealth inequality. Let's talk about the fact today that the top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. All over this country, people are working 2 or 3 jobs, they're working incredibly long hours, and yet 58% of income, new income generated today is going to the top 1%. In America today, we have more wealth and income inequality than any other major country on earth, and it is worse today than at any time since 1928.
I guess so.
Brothers and sisters, our job is to create an economy that works for all of us and not just the billionaire class. And we are sending a message to the wealthiest, the most powerful people in this country. And that message is, you cannot have it all. You are not going to get huge tax breaks when children in this country go hungry. You are not going to continue to send our jobs to China when millions of Americans are in desperate need of decent paying jobs here. You're not going to continue to give huge compensation packages to CEOs while at the same time you cut the wages and the health care benefits and the pensions of working people. Ain't gonna happen. And when we talk about the economy, let's talk about unemployment. And let me tell you what many of you may not know. Real unemployment, including those people who have given up looking for work and are working part-time, is not 5%, it is 10%. And let me tell you something else that is very rarely discussed. And that is, we have a tragedy in this country in terms of youth unemployment. A couple of months ago, I asked some economists to do a study for me to find out what real unemployment was for high school graduates, not dropouts, high school graduates between 17 and 20 years of age. And the results that they came back with were really quite unbelievable. It turns out high school graduates 17 to 20, if those kids were white, real unemployment, 33%. If they were Latino, 36%. If they were African American, 51%. Now, if anyone here thinks there is not a direct connection between high youth unemployment and the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth, you would be mistaken. What makes eminent sense to me is that instead of investing in jails and incarceration, we invest in jobs and education. And here is my first promise of the day to you. If elected president by the end of my first term, we will not have more people in jail than any other country. Our job is to end that dubious distinction and move us toward a situation where, yes, we are #1 in the world, not in terms of people being in jail, but the best educated people on earth. And when we talk about the economy, it's not just income and wealth inequality, it's not just high unemployment. It is the simple reality that wages in America are just too damn low. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. You got it. And you can do the arithmetic as well as I can. You multiply 7 1/4 or 8 or $9 an hour, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. And what you come up with is a number that people cannot exist upon. So in my view, I don't think this is a left-wing extremist position. In my view, we should have a minimum wage, which is a living wage, 15 bucks an hour. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that they not live in poverty. That's not a radical idea. Let me say something else when we talk about wages. I hope every man here today will stand with the women and fight for pay equity for women workers. There is no rational economic reason why women today are making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. That's just old-fashioned sexism that's got ends. But let me tell you something. The real heroes and heroines of this country are those people, often alone, often without money, often women, who are trying to bring up their kids. And if we raise the minimum wage to 15 bucks an hour, and if we have pay equity for women, we will go a long way to enable those women to raise their kids with security and dignity. Now, you know, I've got a lot of Republican colleagues who go all over the country talking about family values. They just love families. But you all know what they mean when they talk about family values. What they say, what they believe, is that women in this country should not have the right to control their own bodies. I disagree. And what they are saying is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to get married in this country. I disagree. Now, I've got 4 kids, 7 grandchildren, and Jane and I have been married for 27 years. I don't know how she did it. I really don't. Tough lady. And we believe strongly in family values and in strengthening families. But our values are a little bit different than Republican values. And top on my list of family values is ending the international embarrassment of the United States of America being the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. It is not a family value to tell a woman who has a baby today that because her family lacks income, working class, low income family, that she has got to separate herself from her baby in a week or 2 to go back to work. That is not a family value. And that is why, as president, I will help implement legislation which guarantees 3 months of paid family and medical leave. And when we talk about America's needs, if real unemployment is 10%, if youth unemployment is 30, 40, 50%, it is a no-brainer to suggest that we need a massive federal jobs program to create millions of decent-paying jobs. In this country today, we should not be firing teachers, we should be hiring teachers. We should be creating hundreds of thousands of new positions for people in childcare so that our kids get the best pre-K and childcare in the world.